Hello everyone, this is part 4 of What If Naruto Owed Ino a Favor, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Why the hell are you so enthusiastic today? Shikamaru grunted, ducking to keep from getting pierced by her kunai. Watching her parade about with a smile on her face, although was some sort of habit, was never such when it came to her training. Today, even when they practiced with swimming, she had a jolly aura about her that was beginning to irk him. Being so cheerful in the morning, for hours on end, and never clearly explaining why, was rather bothersome. What's so wrong about that? Nothing. He sighed, with a roll of his eyes. He glimpsed at his watch, startled to see just how quickly time has progressed for the two of them. They've been at it for about 3 hours. Say Shika, what time is it? She asked curiously. 2 minutes to 8, but this damn watch is always behind a few minutes, so I never know. He admitted, tapping his fairly unreliable source of device. Shikamaru turned to meet Ino, who appeared to be rather worried. She then had her back turned to him, reaching for her jacket sprawled on the grassland. Why? I forgot. I can't believe I completely forgot. Forgot what? Damn, I have to take care of Asuma-sensei's baby today, and I was supposed to be at my mom's at 8. Your mother is crazy for thinking you'd be on time. Shut up. She shot him a threatening look, quickening her pace towards the trails, the easiest way home. Maybe you underestimate me, once again. Sure, he called out, cupping his hands, grinning. And maybe you are amazing. He joked, collapsing onto the meadow. A few chuckles escaped the now content Shikamaru, as he observed Ino retreat from the area. He wondered if she would actually make it on time. Ino panted, trying her best to catch up with her breathing. The cool climate forced a sortie as she proceeded to pass by the mourning bystanders of Konoha. A few familiar faces aired an interested eyebrow at watching Miss Yamanaka pass by them with a wave. Hello, goodbye, she blurted. A blonde rush scurried past them, trying to keep herself from tripping over traces of autumn leaves. She was not typically this friendly towards others, but she felt the need to greet everyone. When the outline of her parents' doorframe was drawing near, she could feel her unease build up alongside the chilly pressure. Her icy fingers clasped the doorknob, shoving it with all the force she could upsurge. I'm here, she gasped, her knees collapsing against the carpet. The warmth of the house overwhelming her, rushing. Ino blinked, witnessing her mother observe her in a dense manner. She perked her head forwards, placing both hands onto the ground, mouth agape to accept any and all forms of oxygen. Why, morning honey. Sapphire eyes crinkled in happiness, clutching her undersized blanket in her arms. I didn't think you would come now. You said, 8 o'clock or else. She cried out in between breaths, shooting an angry look at her mother, who continued to smile half-heartedly in her direction. Where's Asuma-sensei? Relax, and they've already left on their mission. Actually, I'm surprised you didn't catch them. She shrugged, placing the bundle into a sack. It's shocking how early you came, Ino, you night stalker. Ino flinched at her mother's ability to distinguish her change of habits. In fact, you've been doing this occasionally. Yeah, well, you said 8. Alright, I said 8, and you're here. Ino felt her mother rest her fingers onto her chin, kay her daughter's cheek affectionately, the way only a mother could. Let's just hope you'll be this reliable as you get older. Ino snorted, a grin illuminating her features. She bowed her head. You look like you have a story to tell. Well, I'm working at it. She then beamed at her mother, ending her statement with a sly grin. Perhaps it was a woman thing, a practice between a mother and daughter, but Ino's mother acknowledged the moment of silence, and knew that when her daughter was ready, she was prepared to listen. I'm glad you came, I have to go open the shop. Here's the baby's bag. The elder Yamanaka dropped the heavy load onto Ino's lap, the weight causing her to drop onto the rugged floor. This thing is heavy. Statement ignored, Ino looked up to see her mother disappear into another room. She took another glance at the baggage dropped upon her. It was meant more for an adult's belonging than a child's, in her dearest opinion. Because the zipper was not fastened entirely, baby lotions and shampoos stuck out. Ma, how long am I going to have the baby? Her eyebrow tilted upwards. By the look of it, it was going to be a while. She retreated, this time with a stroller, you'll see. She stopped a few inches away from Ino. An infant poked from the collection of blankets wrapped around her, looking rather peaceful in her sleeping state. The appearance of the baby had Ino smiling, slightly excited. Here you go, she pulled her daughter up, placing her palms onto the handlebars. Now, you take care of her. Okay, Ino. I'm always here when you need me. She shooed her towards the door, watching as her daughter pushed the stroll outside the door. All right, I love you, bye-bye. She called out, humored by the clueless look on Ino's face. The door completely shut, she turned towards her home. She'll do fine. Ino sat herself onto the edge of the bed, extending her arm towards the sleeping Naruto. She observed the way his sea rose ascended, grinning at the tired expression plastered on his face. He clutched at the pillow she placed as her replacement, snuggling into the soft fibers. Idiot, wake up, she whispered, brushing her fingers against his cornflower locks. He stirred to an extent, but did not awake. Ino, not now, he mumbled, grabbing a greater hold of the pillow. She smiled affectionately at him. Can't you shut up? Shut up, she cried out, raising her hand in the air. Yeah, shut up. He opened his eye, smirking. Damn broad. Oh yeah, her screams echoing into his ear, rousing his conscious, well. Now you're going to have to deal with two broads. She leaned back exposing a stroller, smirking. Ha, he pulled himself up, his eyes widening into sources. What's that? He pointed at the carriage turned away from him. Curiosity entailed on his expression, his mouth was held agape. A baby, genius. A baby, really. A smile lit his features. He rubbed at his droopy eyes, attempting to comprehend her words. Wow. Naruto pulled the covers off of him, leaping from the bed, but before he could take a step closer, Ino hung onto the hem of his shirt, causing him to fall over from his impending charge. He crashed onto the floor, his legs becoming tangled in unnecessary blankets. Hey. Listen to me, she bent over, her blonde hairs hanging from her head as she viewed him from an opposite point of view. She's a baby, Naruto. I know. He nodded, his mischievous tone arising. He wiggled his fingers, crawling over to the baby stroller. Gosh, he whispered, seating himself in front of the navy blue carriage, pushing it towards him a few more inches. She's so peaceful looking. His fingers gently rubbed against the sleeping infant's cheeks. Babies do that, you know. She made her way towards him, also seating herself on the carpet floor. I think Asuma-sensei's crazy for letting me take care of his only kid. He shifted his gaze onto Ino, eyeing the blank stare he received. I don't think so. She averted her attention towards the child enmeshed in fuzzy blankets. The child had a heapful of lovely raven fuzz, thanks to her kin. Ino could understand the potential the little one attained by having two Jonin as parents. The baby slept serenely, it was almost impossible to imagine how lively they could get. We have a baby now, he commented, his tone dropping into a near murmur. There came a waver of silence between the two of them as they both turned to stare at one another. His words were said in a manner of truth, and while she contemplated over his statement, she giggled a bit. I'm sorta scared. You're always scared. Life is scary, she declared. Ino regretted letting her words become incised into the atmosphere. I know. He placed his arm around her shoulder, pulling her closer to him. She felt his body heat warm her side, feeling a bit comfortable. As if he had conjured a solution, he rotated his head in a swift fashion, sending her an assuring glance. He kissed her forehead. Okay. He pulled away, enjoying how easy it was to make her flush. Come what may, she accepted his form of soothing, burrowing herself onto the plain white t-shirt of his. So, what's her name? Her face squirmed as she bit her lip. Shoot, I forgot to ask. Naruto chuckled. No really. I'm not joking, damn it. She dragged her hand across her face, suddenly feeling hot. Ugh, how could I forget the obvious? Don't stress, relax. He rubbed his hands together, a bit of his tongue sticking from the side of his mouth. He appeared to be in the middle of a complicated mode of thought. He tapped the temple at one side, humming an inconceivable tune. I could call my mom. Satomi. What? Satomi? Or, that's a cute name. Her name is Satomi. Are you joking? She yanked his collar, bringing him downward onto eye level. Teeth barred, she narrowed her eyes, completely enraged by his dim-witted suggestion. Do you seriously want to make up a name for her? I think it's a nice name. He spoke carelessly. Over the course of the past few months he had become acquainted with her imitation of a mad woman, and by no means took her seriously. What if she got used to that name? Kurenai and Asuma would get so pissed. Oh please, they'd never find out. He shrugged, turning towards the infant in questioning. Unless they already call her Satomi, he rolled his eyes in a mocking manner. Besides, what are you going to call her? Baby. Wouldn't that be just as bad? In any case, Satomi is far better than baby. You're an idiot, Naruto. He figured that was her manner of accepting his suggestion. Yeah, Satomi Uzumaki has a nice ring to it. Naruto. What? He pouted, dragging his word. His shoulders slumped, as he skimmed his fingers through his locks. It's only a joke. It's not a joke. She stood up, brushing off the dust on her pants. That sounded so authentic. I just hope you don't get too attached. Remember Naruto, she's Kurenai's and Asuma's child. Sure. He held a smug expression, eyes rolling. Ino relaxed against the trickles of water that trailed down her form, watching the molecule filter down towards the trail. As she turned the knob towards the right, she heaved a sigh, pleased to finally have a moment of relaxation. Her leg reached out of the shower glass, but before she stepped one foot onto the cold tiles, a baby's cry caused her to jolt from where she was, nearly tipping over. She too cried out in surprise, quickly grabbing hold of the towel. Her initial thought, while wild and extreme on its own, consisted of some of course dim-witted move from the future Hokage. Without much of an effort of tying the towel against her bosom, covering a part of her body as she pushed the door away, wet feet stepping onto the hallway. Naruto, what are you doing? I told you not to walk her up. And she woke up, course she did. She was bound to wake up by the rattling Naruto was doing, because the guy could no longer contain himself. Going against Ino's regulations, he poked at the infant's tummy, keeping himself in Ino's room for a few minutes more. Okay, so he made a cheap move. He lingered on leisurely until Ino left to the bathroom, but it was worth it, he believed. Dumb, idiot, she mumbled incoherency, shoving the door in front of her open, hearing the angry door crash onto the wall with a thud creaking back in her direction before she marched into the room, in a towel-class fashion. Her finger raised, a niece was in order, but once she approached him, she saw the baby in his arms, clumped in an inexperienced way. He struggled to hold onto the little one, making a nervous squirm for Satomi, as he so willingly named her. Ino tried not to smile, but it was difficult to ignore the complicated way he was trying to hold the baby, who only blinked at her new caretakers. Like this, Naruto, look. She held onto his arm, pulling it so that he held Satomi's back, adjusting her against his sea. A sigh of relief left him. He peered down at the infant, and Ino too could not refrain from admiring the little one. God, her eyes are beautiful. Ino whispered, seeing the clear crisp crimson tint gloss Satomi's eyes. She definitely got that from Kurenai. Yeah, Satomi's really pretty, ain't she? Aren't you? He turned, his nose pressing against the soft cheek of the baby. She only stared, wide-eyed, curiosity to its fullest extent, intrigued by the interest in the sapphire eyes. She's sort of quiet, Ino stated, taking a hold of the smooth tiny fingers in her palm. Look, hi, little. She shot Naruto a knowing glance. Satomi, she said in defeat, her voice returning to baby talk. You're so cute with your big cherry-colored eyes. Your mommy and daddy are sure stupid for letting Naruto and I take care of precious little you. Hey, Naruto spoke defensively, pulling Satomi away. We're good parents, I think. Perhaps, having the child around was not going to be the best idea around. By the way he narrowed his glare, Ino could evidently pinpoint his unexpected attachment to the child. And what she thought would be a day full of protest of caring for Satomi she believed was going to be the complete opposite at this rate. If you say so. Ino spoke, unconvinced, leaving the room. At the very least, she was not going to be the only one dealing with her, even if they both did not quite know what to do. And there passed the day, both situating their attention towards Kurenai's and Asuma's kin. Look at her, she can stand up. Or, she's smiling Ino. Satomi, looky here. She's so cute. Naruto, that pacifier is not for you. Admiring her so. So what do you think? You can't function or something? He spoke in a murmur, behind Satomi's back, eyes lingering to pull at the carpet strings they all laid upon. His words were in such a casual manner, taking Ino a while to register his exact intentions. Function. Do you believe in yourself? What are you talking about? Her effort to remain calm wore thin, her tone rose with each passing word. In an attempt to keep herself occupied, she rattled the toy was fixated between her digits, enjoying its deafening effect. She kept her gaze towards Kurenai's child, who continued to bite onto the teddy bear that was given to her. Luckily, Satomi became the wall of evasion. Of course I do. Why do you always doubt yourself? I do not doubt myself. You never think you can do anything, actually. I bet that's why you're afraid to be a Kanoiki, again. You don't think you can do it. What the hell are you talking about? You're always so insecure about yourself. Are you serious? She jerked her arm, no longer interested in the plaything she was holding. Biting onto her lip, the absolute fury that was building into her was held in restraint, the only face it did receive was the ringing of the fists. She shifted her eyes back onto Satomi, wiggling the infant's arm. Boy, that Naruto, he's sure crazy. He doesn't even know what he's talking about, right Satomi? Small crimson eyes were too engaged in the texture of the teddy to return any sort of acknowledge. Naruto softly clasped his hand onto Ino's, and you don't really trust me either, because of it. The cerulean tint in her eyes glazed over, Ino squirmed her face, turning away from him. So what, do you trust me full-heartedly? She spoke sarcastically. I don't have to think twice. And what are you supposed to say? That you believe in me. She turned to stare at him, eyes squinting. Course I do, without a doubt. Her eyes widened, not expecting such a rapid reply. For the next few seconds, silence thickened the atmosphere, save for the coos and chuckles of a naive adolescent now grabbing for the abandoned rattle. Naruto pulled himself up, dragging himself across the carpet floor, passing the baby. He became the first to grab a hold of Ino's limb, pulling her towards him, not caring whether she fought against him. She felt herself become pressed onto his torso, the beats of his heart becoming a melody to her. Hey, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, he cradled her frame, fighting against the flutters that danced amidst his abdomen, but I'm sorta crazy about you. Ino chuckled, somewhere between laughter and tears. Her eyes watered, feeling foolish and at ease all the same. Sorta, huh? Quote. Ino, honey, idiot does not mean sweetheart. He tried to pull onto the figure in front of him, as he always did. He had a thing for waking her up in the middle of the night, so he could bother her, even for a minute. By the way Ino would always fidget and groan, he knew she'd give him a good kick and shove. Which was why, when he reached for her torso, all he could grasp was a pillow in front of him. Now fully conscious, he rubbed at his eyes, pulling at the sheets to find nothing but a few pillows awaiting him. Naruto sighed, squinting his eyes to catch a clearer vision. He was surprised to see Ino embracing the small child in her arms, her back pressed against the wall. A tired expression graced her features, as she focused on the soft snort of the baby, a weak smile laced upon her lips. You look a little tired. Yeah, well, she wouldn't stop crying. Ino continued to soothe the infant, her fingers tracing along her black hairs. Satomi, right. A sarcastic, weary chuckle left her. I didn't hear her cry. Naruto aired an eyebrow, scratching lazily at the back of his head. Are you sure? Sure, I'm sure. Why do you think I woke up? She defended, bringing the bundles of blankets closer to her bosom. Okay. He observed the way Ino swayed with Kurenai's child, and understood the lie pretty well. The first thing he wanted to say was, Naruto, you sly dog, but perhaps that was a little too much, especially since the boy was asleep. But he had to admit, damn, that boy actually had him feeling proud to raise him, sort of. So as Jiraiya continued to observe the way Naruto clung onto the sleeping girl in his arms, he could not help but feel the urge to cry out in pompous manner, which in fact he eventually actually did. He clenched his fists, struggling to keep quiet, he felt his teeth grind. Of course, he had to visit the kid. It's been a few months, as usual, and his little tryst of women research was actually on hiatus, to be frank. He thought, since he was already in Konoha he might as well see that brat the fourth left him. After all, he was a bit concerned over him. Honestly, all Naruto would do is pout over some girl named Sakura, Tsunde's apprentice. Well, from what he can see, he sure got over that. Answer, this fairly explained his pure enthusiasm for the boy. Yo, I'd never thought I'd see the day, ha. He stepped into the bedroom, a happy grin heightening his pleased attitude. Naruto grunted, lifting his hand to flick at the bug that he believed was becoming quite a nuisance. His eyes remained shut, as he nuzzled himself into the end collar of Ino's nightshirt. It's too late for that, kid, wake up. Jiraiya shook the boy's shoulder, disinterested with the idea of sleep. Wah! Sapphire Eyes made an effort to peer at the person behind him, when he finally took notice of the infamous white hairs that made up of the one and only, Ero Sennin. He sighed, doubting that it was in fact the toad hermit was practically leering over him. It took a few seconds for the certainty to click inside his intellect, as he recoiled at the idea of Jiraiya finally finding him. He sat up in a sad effort to keep from stirring Ino awake. Ero Sennin, don't call me that, boy. Shush. He placed his fingers atop his mouth, a worried expression now plastered. Really, he had hoped that this guy wouldn't have had to pop up for at least a few weeks more. Please, Ero, she's sleeping. He frowned, yet Jiraiya remained unimpressed by Naruto's plea. Who's that? He placed his foot on the edge of the bed, leaning his elbow on his knee, facing Naruto arrogantly. A friend. What the hell are you doing here? I've never seen her before, she's actually cute, Naruto. How'd you manage? Get out of here. Hey, where's that Sakura who you always obsessed with? He chuckled before adding, she wasn't any good for you anyway. Rose red etched onto Naruto's cheek, he lowered his gaze. About that, confession sounded like a good idea right about now. He frowned, feeling the guilt linger in his empty stomach, but his explanation came to halt when he caught Ino sitting herself. His heart pounded, a sudden rush came through as he wondered if she overheard him. Who's that? Ino pointed, blinking. Her blonde hairs meshed every which way, but she did not seem to mind. The hermit darted his gaze from Naruto. There was a threatening sentiment behind the glance. He shuddered at the thought that Jiraiya did not exactly ignore his last words. The feeling worsened at the joyful greeting that followed. Why hello there. He smiled at Ino, making a grab for her palm, which he then k. She only rubbed at her eyes, still unbeknownst to what exactly was occurring. Jiraiya is the name, also known as the Great Toad Hermit. She giggled at his silly manner of speaking, and shook his hand. Naruto watched the linking of hands, and grew suspicious of the Ero Sennin. As much as he wished the turtle hermit would only stay for a moment or two, he was well aware of the man's charm, the tendency to entice attractive girls. He inherited most of the Jiraiya's qualities, after all. Each time he found Jiraiya passing him a glance, his eyes boring into his skin. It was enough to have him trembling all day. At this point, he recognized the disappointment running through him, and his conscience was not at all of aid to him. His eyes trailed down to Satomi, who reached curiously for a rag that was at close reach for her. In her closed corners, the playpen that they managed to arrange, she placed any and all attention towards the orange table rag that hung loosely from the oven handle bars. As tempted as he was to grab hold of Satomi, and press all of his oncoming frustration into a smothering embrace, he forced himself to focus on Ino. She only sipped idly onto her teacup filled with coffee, captivated by Jiraiya's exaggerations. Jiraiya took another swallow of his sake, surprised to know that the boy had a few of his favorite brands right in the house. Naruto, he lifted the glass in his direction. Since when did you take up drinking? Since you left, he stated, tiredly. His elbow rested atop of the counter, across from the two, his chin laying on his palm. He had hoped that Jiraiya would take the hint, but the man happened to be disregarding any sort of gesture. Aha! You know you can't hold your liquor, boy. The toad hermit banged his fist onto the table, followed by a horde of cackles. Ino took a glimpse at Naruto. Watching him fluster was all too much for her to take, as she too joined the Sannin into hysterics. Directing his attention to Ino, he said, one day he was begging for it, Miss Yamanaka, and when I actually did give in to handing him one cup of sake he threw up an hour later. Ino grinned. Naruto could feel himself growing annoyed at the two of them. Ino and Jiraiya have been behaving close to two schoolgirls in a class reunion. But that was long ago. I guess the boy did hold some immunity to the alcohol. Naruto drummed his fingers on the surface, witnessing the pen dance in front of his eyes. He had forgotten how it felt to be the class clown, and had hoped to never return to that state again. That's funny, at the very least, I'm not a staggering drunk. He watched Ino cough up her coffee, bringing the napkin to her lips as her glare darted in his direction. She was not amused. Oh. Jiraiya ed an eyebrow. Ino here can't last much either. It was now his turn to take into the mirth with the Ero Sennin. Ino wrung her fists, pushing the cup away. Hardy, ha, ha. Her eyes rolled, at least I don't dance like a hooligan. Do not. Naruto cried out, his face reddening. He dances. I didn't know. That's a surprise, the kid can't stop the beat. She jumped from her chair, carrying out a short hip swinging performance. And oh boy, don't even get me started on his singing. He sings too. Jiraiya's face lit up, practically absorbed with the idea of the boy prancing around. The toad hermit then ran his fingers through his pallid locks, his cackles echoing through the four walls of the kitchen, ringing in Naruto's ears. Yeah, when I first met him he was singing this song, I forget what it's called. Oh yeah, at least I can swim. Naruto received a threatening glare. Ino stepped, no stomp towards him, although she was a few inches shorter than the tall future Hokage she undeniably made her presence known. Eyes narrowing, she gritted her teeth, only a few centimeters away by now. I too can swim. So then why'd I have to hold your hand the whole way, You don't know the half of it. At least I don't drool at night. His jaw dropped, finding that all their secrets were being spilt in front of Jiraiya like a deck of cards, 52 card pickup. And the man only soaked up what he could, his knee as he attempted to catch his breath. Any heap of dignity that he had managed to develop after Jiraiya crumbled before him. He was not going to go down so easily, and definitely not alone. You should be the one to talk. I don't have phobias for days. Alright, that's enough. Jiraiya could distinguish the electricity flowing between them, and he was not akin to watching a thunderstorm develop in his witness. Holding his hands out, he pulled them back a few inches apart, but it failed to make any progress. I don't try to pick up a girl by a lousy favor. Oh alright, put up a guard, like you always do. Okay. Jiraiya shouted into Naruto's ear, the boy cringing from the defining bellow, taking a few steps back from them both. Ino kept herself from completely lunging at him, puffs of breath escaping her parted lips. The more she stared at him, the angrier she became. So what did he mean by that? She thought prick. The Sannin swallowed the portion of sake that managed to settle in his mouth, feeling the alcohol tingle at his midsection. When he turned to check on Ino, he could see Tsunde's livid anger pouring out from her, and became officially alarmed. The girl was a nut, he concluded, as much as a nut as Naruto. Alright, tension I see. He sighed heavily, figuring that Naruto was not at all happy either. He then faced Naruto, relax. For the oddest reason, he felt the Kyuubi's energy waver through him, and realized that they both hit a few unwanted chords. Both of you are crazy, the toad hermit rubbed at his chin, eyes closing. Crazy kids, getting riled up over a bunch of nonsense. Mumbling, he then strolled over to Satomi, opting to pick her up. Ino and Naruto stood at their post, two pairs of blue eyes watching the way Jiraiya held the baby in the air, who only giggled and mused over the Sannin. It left an uncomfortable sentiment to smog over the two of them. Naruto held a shaky gaze towards Ino, who focused on the patterns of the table rag. He shifted uncomfortably, rubbing at his elbow the way he would do when Kakashi used to tell him he was not enduring his chakra well. He started. His words lingered through the dense atmosphere, over the mulud of goo-goos and gagas of baby talk, like that you have irrational fears. He paused before adding, they show that you're vulnerable. He expected idiot, but didn't receive the insult, comment. The frustration was now wiped from her expression, a smile playing upon her lips. He found himself satisfied, wanting to make her laugh, perhaps. The two became immersed in one another, lost in silent banter, by the silly faces Naruto would make and the equally silly efforts Ino had to keep from giggling. Of course, all of it was channeled towards Jiraiya, whom seconds later laid a suspicious glance in the direction, to find the two jolt into pseudo-daydreaming. Aha, I guess it didn't take long for you two to make up. He placed Satomi back onto the crib, well, he shouted, finishing his drawl with a yawn, stretching his arms towards the ceiling, I guess it's about time I leave, but before I go, the Ero Sennin stepped towards Ino, taking a hold of her wrist. I'd like to ask if you'd give me the pleasure. Naruto's ears twitched, knowing the recognizable change in his tone, of using you as a reference to my next novel. Ino, whom obviously knew nothing of the Ica Paradise series, beamed at him, nodding her head happily. She's not interested. Can you leave now? Naruto pulled Jiraiya away from her, pushing him towards the door. Yes, I am interested, don't listen to Naruto. Ino rolled her eyes, watching the toad hermit be escorted by the blonde. Jiraiya only turned to wave a pleasant goodbye to Ino, before having the door S by Naruto. Congratulations Ino, you've now been officially included into Eros Senen's adult book. He crossed his arms. She had an eyebrow, scratching at her ear. Exactly, you didn't have to S the door in his face, stupid. She walked past him, averting her attention to Satomi, who reached her arms out for Ino. Do you understand what I'm saying? An adult novel, as in Kakashi-sensei being the only one reading that junk. Don't say that about your sensei. Ino had her back turned to him, fixated in a game of peekaboo. As in, you have to be older than 17 to take a glimpse at it. The loudmouth ninja watched the aura of content drastically change to worry, even from behind. As in, he finished with a grin, XXX. Her posture stiffened, and before he could feel even an ounce of guilt, she was already at the door, her fingers running through the many different locks that she had, all the while Satomi stared wide-eyed at her insane caretaker. He better not be within walking distance. She growled, finishing the last few locks. Geez, why the hell do we have so many? I don't know, Naruto whistled, finding this all amusing to the utmost extent. You're the one who bought all that security crap. Yeah, well, whatever. Sure. Nice comeback, Ino. She forced the door to swing violently open. It crept a few inches forward anyhow. The wild look splashed upon her features now disappeared, followed by shock. Hi. B rushed under her eyes, her face flushing at the person in front of her. Curious, Naruto leaned in front of her. He too went into a sputtering speech. Miss Yamanaka, why I didn't expect you to be here. Iruka scratched nervously at the back of his N. Perhaps I have the wrong house. Do you happen to know where Naruto? His russet orbs shifted downward, towards the clueless-looking guy. For that split moment between the three of them, there came a defiant truth. Something was up, and it was now time to face the music. Iruka chuckled, oddly concerned for what exactly have those two been up to by the way they appeared to be startled. Iruka-sensei. It's been weeks, months since he last seen Iruka, and since he's been at the Ichiraku ramen bar. He trapped his former sensei in a bear hug, and Iruka could remember the small noisy student whom he had to look down upon now stand at his exact proportionate. Naruto, he patted the boy's back. Ino observed the way Iruka had his eyes shut tight and noted at the idea of a father-son reunion occurring before her. Ino felt the standards of a regular woman hit her hard when she realized she could not cook a thing for her old sensei. He did not mind very much, and was happy with a bowl of noodle soup Naruto made for them both, yet she felt somewhat useless in the cooking department, a much feminine feature, or so she was made to believe. For a child of only a few months, Satomi was very quiet. Not a very fussy child, she oftentimes kept to herself when Naruto and Ino found themselves in another dispute, for lack of better words. As she held Satomi, watching her hold her own bottle of baby formula, her felt the flutters the way a mother would feel when she watched her child fall asleep. So, Ino? Iruka coughed, the taste of ramen was clear, is she yours? In a both nervous and unhopeful manner, he turned to Naruto, still not being able to put two and two together. Oh no. Ino laughed loudly, nervously. She isn't mine, I'm only babysitting for Asuma-sensei. I figured, she did look familiar. He nodded, consciously sighing with relief. He knew Ino was not that sort of girl, and certainly not with having a Noiki as a father. Sara, I know it might be a little impolite, but are you two? Iruka pointed at both Ino and Naruto, his index and thumb clicking together as a mocking expression laced onto his features. Naruto sighed, turning to look at Ino, who kept her mouth, and only widened her sapphire eyes. A half-hearted giggle left her, and she felt the firm tie of flutters flurry in her abdomen. Oh no, her eyes closed, tipping her head to the side, we're just friends, that's about it. I needed a place to stay, she was nice enough to give me a room. He spoke, less enthusiastic but still grasping the smile that tucked his lips. He finished his bowl, placing it atop of Naruto's empty one. Iruka went so far as to put a believable assurance to them both. He stood up, clasping his hands together as he passed Naruto, walking from the kitchen where Jiraiya once stood, now to the living room. He rotated his head onto the hallway, his eyes skimming to count 2 common-sized rooms, which he presumed to be a bedroom as well as bathroom, and a thin door at the end of the foyer, possibly a closet. Right. He grinned, the way Naruto would often do when he had something up his sleeve. Iruka walked casually, even to go as far as to have his hands behind his back, strolling a few steps closer into the lounge. Roommate A. So where's your room, Naruto? Here. He tapped his fingers on the couch. Somewhere along his response came a sure, or a yeah, but neither Ino nor Naruto could remember. They both felt the wit of Iruka weigh on them both, and the interrogation only started. Ooh. Iruka responded, loudly. His understanding statement echoing into the hallway. He went as far as to nod a few times. You understand that you're not really impressing me with your lies, right? He snorted, lowering his gaze onto the sofa, patting it. This doesn't even appear to be comfortable. That's what I told her. But no, Iruka-sensei, the woman doesn't listen. I knew I wasn't the only one. Naruto broke out into a strident protest. Ino gave out a defeated sigh, turning to the side, as she scratched the hairs above her ear. And although a smack to the head was definitely in order, Iruka was just amazed at how easy it was to admit it, without much of effort. He could only laugh to himself, finding the dumbfounded look on Ino's pretty face just as amusing. Well, I knew that wouldn't work. Ino darted her glare towards Naruto, who in spite of being the fault of all this, joined Iruka in his fit of chuckles. Iruka could hint Ino relaxing her stance, and ceased with his humor. Well, that was interesting, he nodded, stretching at his arms, and amusing all the same, but I believe I've had my share of fun for today. It was insane, watching 2 of his students grow at both heights and intellects, not to mention the affection he could see between them. He would have never guessed it, but when it comes to the impulsive, Naruto and Ino were quite proficient in that area. This was nice, with the screaming and yelling. I rather miss that. He took a glance at the ceiling, lost in memories of scolding at them both when they were much younger, because after all, they were still children in his eyes. With a peace sign and a smile, Iruka had left the house behind him, into the gentle gusts of autumn wind blowing into his brunette hairs that hung from the hair tie. Ino watched him leave, until the body of a man turned into something consisted with that of a shadow. That's weird, 2 visitors in one day. Weird. It's like the ghosts of Christmas past. Next thing I'll know Kakashi-sensei would show up. And he wouldn't knock or barge in like those 2, he'd puff in here. Ino huffed a short chuckle. Ino almost expected for her folks to come on by, just like Naruto's fathers. Maybe Naruto was an orphan, but for an orphan he had a lot of fathers that cared for him so. But then again, the idea of a Noiki swinging on by was not at all entertaining. That would mean she'd have to explain it all. And as the saying goes, everything is everything. So she'll yell at him, so what? Naruto could feel himself drifting off, the television becoming some sort of zombie portal to him. He adjusted himself on the couch, feeling the pressure on his seat where Satomi rested. That was all too easy, he winded in his thoughts, somewhere in and out of his conscious. His eyes fluttered, catching a gist of the cops that hauled away the prisoner on the screen. He draped a protective arm over the infant, feeling her snuggle into his torso. Cute kid, he mumbled, feeling the haze of sleep overwhelming him. I wouldn't drop you. There came no reply, but he already acknowledged the solitude. Ino went out for what? He did not really know. She only mumbled a few things before running out of the door. Ino doesn't know what she's talking about. His eye rotated, glancing at the pale ceiling. He blinked leisurely, counting the hanging portraits that were situated near the wall. 1, 2, 5. I hate that one. Why the hell does she still have that one up there? He thought, sucking at his teeth with the idea of the smaller Naruto staring back at him, with his trademark smile across his face. Somewhere behind him a click was heard. He figured it was Ino in her lame attempt at coming into the house quietly, but was too tired to greet her. He blinked, again and again, until he merely squinted, losing his awareness as the grasp against the child was now held with less pressure. His free hand dropped onto the soft fabric of the rug, the thump causing him to stir awake one last time. In which he was greeted with 2 sapphire orbs, a piercing hue that left him startled. He cried out, widening his glare at the man who held 2 fingers onto his N. What in? Move an inch, and you'll be left for S. Inoki narrowed his livid stare, pressing his fingers onto Naruto's N. The younger ninja quickened his breathing, completely speechless. Unbelievable, the way his heart hammered in his C. He shivered at him, feeling the sweat beginning to amass on his forehead. He could have spotted him, he should have spotted him, and Kakashi-sensei would only scold him for being so dense. Damn it. What are you going to do? Naruto tried to keep his composure, he could feel the paper texture rubbing against his skin, and acknowledged the warning. Any sudden movements and the focal artery on his N would be spurting out B. Genius, he'd note, if he was not in such a predicament. What are you doing here? A tone so dark and murky. Where's Ino? I wish I knew where she was. God, please, somewhere, if you exist. No, I know you exist, save a poor worthless son of a gun. It was times like these in which his wit would make up for the lack of nerves. You better have not done anything to her. Daddy. A voice see off the monster tone from the well-respected Konoha citizen, the hint of crimson in his eyes softened, into which a father was reborn. Ino. Inoki proceeded to ignore Naruto, turning to see his tipping to the side to balance the bags that dangled from her pinky. She tried to appear as ecstatic as he was, but failed by expression alone. Naruto's head poked from the couch, a look of horror painted over his face. Ino gulped through her false smile, hoping that her father had not done anything insane yet. Inoki hauled her into a strong hug, brushing her hair with his hands. What felt like a month of separation was in fact only among 2 days or so. Honey, how are you? Great. Ino curled the ends of her mouth into a grin. Her bags were dropped, the lack of oxygen suffocating her so. Oh, he responded, dumbfounded. He loosened his grip, pulling to stare at his feminine replication. Sorry. He angled his head to the side, a sweet smile gracing his handsome features. So who's that? Inoki nudged his N, his eyes rolled with the gesture. Ah. Ino chuckled. Loudly. She waved her hand, so as to brush the topic off, but her father only curved his eyebrow. He's Naruto, Daddy. Yes, I know that. The QB container, but what is he doing here? Naruto slumped his shoulders, his backside thumping against the cushion of the couch. He sighed, blowing at his bangs. He already recognized this because he had to live through this his whole life. As much as he wished for people to see him without the association of the demon fox, he knew he could only keep wishing. And he felt sick. The same nausea poured over him like honey, into his abdomen, seeping into his conscience. He lived by that label, and now he was going to have to watch Ino laugh it off. Sure, laugh it off, and pretend that nothing ever happened. Pretending did not work with his former senseis. He knew more than anyone that Jiraiya and Iruka were far more clever than they had led to believe. It made him wonder if she was embarrassed to be with him. She glanced back and forth between the couch and her father before facing the fine fibers of the floor herself. Her fingers laced into a tight knot, a nervous habit that has yet to be laid to rest. Ino felt her father's blistering stare run her down, burning her face. A sigh left her, lingering into the atmosphere. It took one last moment for her to adjust the frown forming on her face, into a daring smirk. Daddy, a brilliant smile, she pulled her knotted fingers out, cracking the air between her knuckles, leaning on her father's side, he's my boyfriend. At instinct, Naruto tumbled from the couch, taken aback by her words. He left Satomi resting at the edge of the sofa, practically tripping over his legs to get himself to stand. She's crazy, don't listen to her. He cried out, sapphire orbs glazed by the sudden emotion dashing in his sea. His smile widened, as he practically collapsed onto her open arms, his knees crashing onto the floor. He buried his face into her abdomen, hugging her hips for balance. The sudden impulse to shed tears rushing at him, piercing him like bullets. It was a sickly good feeling, an awfully admirable, intense, sentiment that loomed into his sea, swelling his heart. Crazy, she's crazy, I'm crazy, we're crazy, he mumbled, feeling Ino run her fingers through his hair. Don't believe it a bit, sir. I couldn't tell you how much I loved her even if I tried. His sight was sealed, he held the girl in his arms pretty well. Ino only snickered, no longer concerned for the way others had thought about her or Naruto. She felt liberated, she felt free. It was release, and she was just happy. Love tingled all the way down. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.